"Make me laugh and I'll marry you," said the millionaire to the waitress. But she did something he never expected, something that left everyone speechless. Subscribe now or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected. Upper East Side, Manhattan. The penthouse glittered above the city like a crown made of glass and pride. The party was loud, expensive, and soulless, exactly how Victor Hale liked it. Victor Hale, 52, tall, charming, and far too sure of himself, believed that anything, even love, could be bought if you paid enough. But that night, something in him was restless. His laughter came out hollow, his champagne tasteless. Among the waiters and guests, a woman moved quietly, unnoticed by most. Her name was Alyssa Brooks, 32, with clear brown eyes and a calm, serious grace. She wasn't beautiful in the glossy, easy way the guests were. She was real. It was her first day working for the catering company, and she already hoped it would be her last. Victor's voice broke through the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Victor, clapping his hands loudly, "let's have a little fun tonight. I'm bored of fake smiles and polite talk." The crowd turned toward him, laughing nervously just to please him. Then his gaze landed on her, the young woman with the serious eyes, standing by the table with a tray in her hands. "You," said Victor, pointing at her. "Yes, you. The one who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else. Come here." Alyssa froze for a moment, her heart jumping in her chest. "Me, sir?" she asked softly. "Of course," said Victor with a charming smile. "What's your name?" "Alyssa Brooks, sir," she replied. "Well, Alyssa Brooks," Victor said, raising his glass, "have you ever made a man laugh?" Alyssa blinked, unsure what to answer. "I suppose, maybe once or twice," she said quietly. "Then let's make it interesting," Victor said, enjoying the attention. "If you can make me laugh, I'll marry you." Laughter exploded through the room. The women covered their mouths with their glasses. The men smirked. Everyone found it amusing. Everyone except Alyssa. She slowly set her tray down on the table and looked at him straight in the eyes. "All right," she said calmly. "I accept." The room fell into a strange, heavy silence. Somebody whispered, "Did she just say yes?" Victor grinned. "Perfect. You have 1 minute, Miss Brooks. Make me laugh, and maybe you'll walk out of here as Mrs. Hale." Alyssa took a breath, stepped to the center of the room, and folded her hands in front of her apron. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "You said, 'Make me laugh and I'll marry you.'" "That's a lovely promise," said Alyssa, her tone gentle but firm. "But tell me, Mr. Hale, how many women have you made cry before you went looking for one to make you laugh?" The words hit him like ice water. The laughter stopped instantly. Someone coughed. A glass clinked against the table. Victor stared at her, his smile faltering. "Are you mocking me?" he asked sharply. "No, sir," said Alyssa, her eyes unwavering. "I'm just playing by the same rules you made." A murmur ran through the guests. Curiosity, surprise, a hint of admiration. There was something magnetic about the young woman who dared to speak like that. Alyssa took a step closer. "You said you'd marry me if I made you laugh," she continued softly. "But if there was truly something funny in your life, you wouldn't need me to make you happy." For a long second, no one moved. Then Victor did something no one expected. He laughed. It was short, nervous, but real. A laugh filled with discomfort and a trace of shame. "There," said Alyssa with a faint smile. "You laughed. So I suppose that means you should marry me, right?" Victor opened his mouth to speak, but she didn't let him. "Don't worry, sir," said Alyssa, her voice stronger now. "I don't want to marry you, because a woman doesn't marry because a man decides she should. She marries only if she wants to." The silence that followed was deep, the kind that makes hearts race. Then somewhere in the back of the room, someone laughed. Then another, and in a few seconds the entire room was laughing again, but this time at him. Alyssa picked up her tray. Before walking away, she looked at him one last time and smiled softly. "Good evening, Mr. Hale," she said, "and thank you for making me laugh too." The doors closed behind her. Victor Hale stood frozen in his perfect suit, surrounded by the sound of laughter, the kind he could never buy. And for the first time in his life, that laughter hurt. But inside that pain, something new began to grow, something he couldn't yet name: respect, curiosity, and maybe the very first seed of love. For the first time in years, Victor Hale didn't call his lawyers. He didn't buy silence or headlines or control. He just sat in his glass office staring at the city below him and hearing her words over and over again in his mind. A woman doesn't marry because a man decides she should. She marries only if she wants to. Those words burned and soothed at the same time. Days turned into weeks. Newspapers had their fun. The billionaire silenced by a waitress. When dignity outsmarts money. Every headline hit harder than the last. But Victor didn't fight them. For once, he let the world laugh and stayed quiet. One night, he sat alone in his penthouse, the city's glow reflecting in the glass walls. He poured himself a drink, then whispered to the empty room. "Where are you, Alyssa Brooks?" said Victor softly. The next morning, he called the catering agency. "I need information about one of your temporary workers," said Victor impatiently. "Her name is Alyssa Brooks." "I'm sorry, Mr. Hale," said the woman on the phone nervously. "She was just a replacement. No address, no record, nothing." Victor stayed silent for a long time. He, the man who could buy a company in an hour, couldn't find a single woman who'd walked away from him. 3 months passed. Then, one afternoon, he found an ivory envelope on his desk. It wasn't business mail. It was handwritten, elegant. He opened it slowly. Inside, an invitation. "The Downtown Collective Theater, special event, The Power of a Laugh artistic director, Alyssa Brooks." Victor stared at the words. His chest tightened. Alyssa. That night, for the first time in years, he didn't wear a tuxedo. No bow tie, no arrogance. Just a simple black suit, and uncertainty in his eyes. He arrived quietly and took a seat in the back row. The theater lights dimmed, and then she appeared on stage. Alyssa, in a soft cream dress, hair loose around her shoulders, speaking into a microphone with grace and calm. "Laughter is a strange thing," said Alyssa gently. "Some people laugh to hide, others laugh to heal. But the hardest kind of laughter is when you finally learn to laugh at yourself." The audience smiled. A few people laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes from truth, not humor. Victor couldn't look away. He watched her every word, every pause. She seemed lighter, stronger, as if life had already forgiven her. When the show ended, the crowd stood up and applauded. Victor clapped too, harder than anyone, feeling something crack open inside him. He waited until the audience began to leave. Then, with quiet steps, he walked backstage. Alyssa was there, gathering her papers. When she looked up and saw him, her expression froze. Surprise, then calm. "Good evening, Mr. Hale," said Alyssa. "I didn't know humor was one of your passions." Victor smiled faintly. "To be honest, it wasn't," said Victor. "At least not until 3 months ago. But ever since you made me laugh that night, I haven't stopped thinking about it." Alyssa crossed her arms. "Thinking about humor," said Alyssa dryly. "Or about yourself?" "About you," said Victor quietly. "And about what I couldn't see before." "Strange," said Alyssa with a small smirk. "Men like you usually don't see people until they lose them." "You're right," said Victor softly. "That's why I came. To apologize." "Apologies aren't said," said Alyssa firmly. "They're proven." "Then let me prove it," said Victor, taking a step closer. Give me a chance." "I don't have time for games," said Alyssa, shaking her head. "I've learned that real life isn't a dinner party challenge." "I'm not challenging you," said Victor sincerely. "I just want to know you." Alyssa looked at him, half amused, half cautious. "Know me?" said Alyssa. "You don't even know yourself." Victor smiled, almost shy. "That's exactly why I'd like to start with you," said Victor softly. Alyssa sighed, picking up her bag. "Here's what you can start with, Mr. Hale," said Alyssa. "Learn to laugh at yourself, and if you ever manage that, maybe one day you can laugh with me, not at me." Then she walked away, her heels echoing down the hallway. Victor didn't stop her. He just stood there, still, watching her leave. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel humiliated. He felt human. From that night at the downtown theater, something in Victor Hale began to change. Not quickly, not easily, but it changed. The man who once laughed only at others started to laugh at himself. And it hurt, but in a good way. One cold morning, he walked into his corporate boardroom without warning, shocking his executives. They straightened their suits as he placed his hands on the table and said, calmly but firmly, "Starting today, no more starvation wages," said Victor. "Every employee should earn enough to live, not just survive." The financial director nearly choked. "But, sir," said the man nervously, "that will increase our expenses by 30%. Victor smiled faintly. "Then we'll sell a few luxury cars," said Victor. "I hear walking helps you think." The room went silent. For the first time, they didn't recognize the man standing at the head of the table. In the weeks that followed, Victor started doing something even stranger. He began visiting a small cafe downtown, a cozy, ordinary place where artists and theater people came to drink cheap coffee. He knew Alyssa went there most mornings before her rehearsals. The first day he saw her walk in, his heart raced so fast he almost dropped his cup. "Alyssa!" said Victor, standing up too quickly. "What a coincidence!" She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "A coincidence," said Alyssa dryly, "or a very well-planned ambush." Victor's grin was sheepish. "Let's say my schedule took a sudden turn," said Victor softly. Alyssa studied him for a moment, then sat down across from him. "All right, Mr. Hale," said Alyssa, crossing her arms. "Let's see how long this new version of you lasts." "As long as you keep doubting it," said Victor with a smile. "I'll have a reason to keep proving it." This time, Alyssa laughed. Really laughed. Not with mockery, but warmth. The sound disarmed him completely. After that day, they began to see each other often, sometimes by accident, sometimes because one of them wanted to. One afternoon, Victor arrived with a brown paper bag full of books. "What's that?" asked Alyssa, curious. "Lessons in Humility," said Victor proudly. "Found it in a used bookstore. Figured it was urgent reading." Alyssa smiled. "Then buy 2 copies," said Alyssa. "You'll need a new one tomorrow." They both laughed, and for the first time, it wasn't forced. It was light, real, and human. As the weeks passed, their conversations grew deeper. Alyssa told him about her childhood, about nights cleaning offices while dreaming of the stage. And Victor, the man who never listened to anyone, listened to her as if his soul depended on it. One evening, walking together along the Hudson River, the sky fading into violet, Victor turned to her quietly. "You've taught me something, Alyssa," said Victor. "That wealth isn't a mansion full of mirrors. It's a life full of people who show you who you are, even when you don't like what you see." Alyssa looked at him, a little stunned. "I didn't know you could be poetic," said Alyssa. "I didn't either," said Victor, smiling softly. "Maybe it's your fault." "Careful," said Alyssa with a small grin. "Sometimes the people who learn to laugh end up falling in love." "Too late," said Victor quietly. Alyssa turned her face away, hiding her smile. but her heart beat faster. A few days later, Victor made his boldest move yet. He rented the very same theater where they'd met again, but this time it wasn't for himself. When Alyssa arrived that night, surprised, the room wasn't filled with diamonds and gossip. It was full of ordinary people, artists, workers, families in need. A hand-painted banner read, "Every laugh tonight helps someone stand again." On stage stood Victor, in a simple jacket, microphone in hand. "Good evening, everyone," said Victor. "No games tonight, no arrogance, just a promise that every laugh we share here will help someone who hasn't smiled in a long time." Applause filled the room. Alyssa stood in the back, watching him. She smiled, not because he was perfect, but because he wasn't pretending to be anymore. After the event, Victor walked up to her, his voice trembling slightly. "I can't say 'make me laugh and I'll marry you' anymore," said Victor softly. "But if someday you laugh beside me, even by accident, I'll consider myself the happiest man alive." Alyssa looked at him tenderly. "And what if I decide to get married?" said Alyssa playfully. "And I choose you?" Victor's smile was quiet, full of emotion. "Then for once," said Victor, "the right person would win." Alyssa laughed, shaking her head. "Careful, Mr. Hale. You're becoming almost likable." "Almost," said Victor, pretending to be hurt. "Almost," said Alyssa, smiling. "But you're getting there." That night, under the soft theater lights, they laughed together. Not as rivals, but as two people who had finally learned to laugh at themselves and to believe again. 6 months later, spring arrived in New York. The city bloomed, and so did Victor's heart. He was no longer the man who humiliated for fun. He had sold one of his mansions, the one filled with chandeliers and fake parties, and used the money to open a foundation for women in need. He called it the Alyssa Project. When reporters asked about the name, he simply said, "Because the truest smile of my life taught me that dignity can't be bought." Meanwhile, Alyssa continued her work at the theater, helping young artists, teaching them that beauty lives not in perfection, but in truth. One day, she received a small ivory envelope. On it, written in elegant handwriting, "To the woman who taught me to laugh." Inside, an invitation. Grand opening of the Hale Social Theater, 7 p.m. Dress code, a smile. Alyssa laughed softly to herself. "A smile, huh?" she said. "Let's see if he's really changed, or just gotten smarter." That evening, she arrived wearing a simple dress and her quiet confidence. The moment she entered the hall, the room seemed to light up. Not from the chandeliers, but from his eyes. Victor approached her immediately. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," said Victor. "I don't like ceremonies," said Alyssa with a gentle smile. "But this one felt right." "All of this," said Victor, gesturing around, "is because of you. The theater, the foundation, even my laughter. It's all your fault." "My fault?" said Alyssa, laughing. "Then maybe I should sue you for emotional transformation." "I could offer you dinner," said Victor, smiling. "Or a proposal. Your choice." Alyssa tilted her head, pretending to think. "A proposal," she teased. "Wasn't that your challenge once upon a time?" "Yes," said Victor softly. "But back then, I wanted to make you laugh to show off. Now, I just want to see you laugh because you're happy. And if I don't laugh," said Alyssa, playing along, "then I'll wait," said Victor gently. "As long as it takes." Alyssa looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw not pride, not wealth, but truth. "You know what's funny?" said Alyssa softly. "To make you laugh that night, I had to humiliate you. But to make me laugh today, all I have to do is look at you." Victor laughed, real and free. "So," said Victor with a trembling voice, "you're laughing now?" "Yes, Victor," said Alyssa, smiling. "And as you once said, when someone laughs from the heart, Maybe that means she's ready to marry." He went down on one knee, his eyes shining. "Then," said Victor, "let's laugh together, for the rest of our lives." Alyssa laughed again, her eyes wet with emotion. "I'll marry you," she said softly, "but only on one condition." "What's that?" asked Victor. "That you never stop laughing, and that no woman ever has to lose her dignity to make a man smile." Victor nodded, tears in his eyes. "Deal," he whispered. He stood, took her in his arms, and kissed her. Not like a victory, but like peace. As the audience clapped around them, someone in the crowd whispered, "Who would have thought it only took a real woman to make a billionaire truly laugh?" And Alyssa's laughter filled the room, warm, genuine, unbought. That night, it wasn't just the end of a story. It was the beginning of one. Because Victor finally understood that happiness isn't something you buy. It's something you earn. One honest laugh at a time. The Hamptons, early summer. A sea breeze moved through the open windows of a bright wooden house. Laughter drifted from the backyard. Not the fake kind that used to echo through Victor's old parties, but real, warm, unguarded laughter. Victor Hale sat at a long table, sleeves rolled up, trying to help a group of teenagers paint scenery for a small community play. His once perfect suit had been replaced by a shirt splattered with color. "Mr. Hale, you missed a spot," said one of the kids, grinning. Victor laughed. "That's called modern art," said Victor, pretending to admire the messy stroke. "You'll appreciate it when I'm gone." Alyssa walked out from the house barefoot, carrying lemonade. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands falling around her face. She stopped at the doorway, watching him for a moment. He looked so different now, lighter, alive. "You're scaring those kids with your painting skills," said Alyssa, smiling. "I'm inspiring them," said Victor proudly, "to do better than me." She laughed. "That's not a high bar." He turned to her, his smile softening. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Hale." "Flattery won't save you from cleaning those brushes," said Alyssa. He walked toward her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Do you remember the night you made me laugh for the first time?" said Victor quietly. "You ruined my pride." "And you're still thanking me for it," said Alyssa. "I should," said Victor, "because that was the night everything real began." They looked toward the small theater down the hill, the Hale Social Theater, now filled every weekend with people who once had nowhere to belong. Behind it stood a new center, the Alyssa Project, now expanded across the city. Children's laughter echoed from inside the theater. Alyssa leaned her head on Victor's shoulder. "You ever think about the old days?" she asked softly. "Sometimes," said Victor, "but I don't miss them." She smiled. "Me neither." He kissed her temple, then added, "You know, I used to think happiness was applause, the kind you can hear." "And now?" said Alyssa. "Now I know it's this," said Victor, looking around, at her, the kids, the sea beyond the dunes, quiet laughter, shared work, real life. She squeezed his hand. "Well," said Alyssa, "it only took you half a lifetime to figure it out." "And you?" said Victor, smiling. "Only one sharp sentence." A gust of ocean wind brushed through them. Somewhere the children began to sing, off-key, happy, pure. Alyssa laughed again, the sound blending with the waves. Victor closed his eyes for a moment, letting it sink in. The man who once believed he could buy laughter had learned to build it, and he knew, as long as that laughter filled his home, his heart, his world, he would never be poor again. Evening settled over the Hamptons like a slow exhale. The horizon burned gold, the ocean breathing softly against the shore. Victor and Alyssa walked hand in hand along the wet sand, barefoot, silent, peaceful. He stopped for a moment, watching the waves roll and retreat. "Do you ever wonder," said Victor softly, If we would have met under different circumstances, no parties, no pride, no games. Alyssa smiled, her eyes on the fading sun. Maybe, said Alyssa, but then you wouldn't have learned how to laugh the way you do now. He chuckled quietly. That laugh cost me everything. And gave you everything, said Alyssa gently. Victor turned to her, the wind brushing through his silvering hair. You know, every time you laugh, said Victor. I remember that night, the moment I thought I was being humiliated, but I was really being reborn. Alyssa looked up at him, smiling through her own tears. Then don't ever stop laughing, said Alyssa softly. That's how you'll keep living. He kissed her forehead and whispered, Promise me you'll keep making me laugh, even when I forget how. She looked at him with a warmth that needed no words. I already am, said Alyssa. They stood there for a long while, the sea stretching before them, their reflections dancing with the tide. Somewhere behind them, lights flickered on at the Hale Social Theater, tonight's show about to begin. The audience gathered, unaware that the two souls who had built that place were still out there, laughing with the ocean. Victor took a deep breath, then said quietly, almost to himself, Who would have thought a single laugh could change a man's whole life? Alyssa's laughter answered him, light, pure, and real, the kind that no money, no power, no empire could ever buy. They walked away together, their footsteps fading into the sand as the tide rolled in, erasing the old marks, leaving only new ones behind. And in that gentle sound of the waves, you could almost hear it, the echo of a woman's laugh, and a man finally free enough to laugh with her.